whenever you're ready.
Thanks. Before we start, the City Council just met on 2 closed session items, and there's nothing to report out at this time. Good evening, and thank you for viewing the July 7th regular meeting of the Arcata City Council. City Council meeting is held as a teleconference in response to local efforts to reduce the spread of COVID-19. We're excited to see the state reopen and ask that we continue to support the decisions of individual businesses to require masking and social distancing so we can reopen safely. If you wish to make public comment during the meeting, either at 2 open public comment periods or for an individual agenda item, there are 2 ways to do so. If you're logged onto Zoom, click on raise your hand on the right-hand side of your screen. When it's time for public comment on the item you wish to speak on, the clerk will unmute you. You will have 2 minutes to comment. You can access the meeting by phone as well. Call the number at the bottom of the screen. Enter the meeting ID also at the bottom of the screen. Press *9 on your phone. This will raise your hand. When it's time for public comment on the item on which you wish to speak, the clerk will unmute your phone. You will hear a prompt that will indicate your phone is unmuted. You will have 2 minutes to comment. Please, if you care to, please join me in the flag salute. I was gonna wait. Are we gonna have a flag, or it's okay if we don't? I can see the flag from here.
I am. Yeah, I'll pull it up here quick.
No problem. Take your time. Take your time.
She had here. Nope, no flag. Just
that's all right. I can see the flag from here. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, may we please have a roll call?
Mayor Watson.
Here.
Councilmember Atkins Salazar.
Here.
Councilmember Goldstein. Councilmember Schaefer.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. First, we have ceremonial matters, a proclamation recognizing July 2021 as Parks and Recreation Month. Whereas Parks and Recreation make lives of communities better now and in the future. And whereas it is established through statewide public opinion research that 98% of California households visit a local park at least once a year, 2 in 3 households visit a park once a month, 50% of households participate in an organized recreation program, and most park use is with family and friends. And whereas public parks and trails have been vital outlets for physical activity and mental health during the COVID-19 pandemic, and Rails to Trails Conservancy has found that nationally, trail use continues to be 60% higher than before the pandemic. And whereas residents see youth recreation programs as an opportunity for young people to develop artistic creativity, social connections, self-esteem, and lifelong health and learning, which all help reduce local crime and mischief, especially during non-school hours. And whereas residents value our local parks for access to outdoor spaces as a place where everyone can play and be active, exercise, enjoy group sports, and have access to the serenity and inspiration of nature while preserving and protecting our natural, historic, and cultural resources. Whereas the residents of Arcata, including children, youth, families, adults, seniors, businesses, community organizations, and visitors, benefit from the wide range of parks, trails, open spaces, sports fields, tennis courts, facilities, and programs, including community-wide special events, camp programs, and health and wellness opportunities provided by the Recreation and Parks divisions. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Arcata hereby recognizes July 2021 as Parks and Recreation Month. The council reminds the community that parks make life better and urges all its residents to enjoy Parks and Recreation's benefits of enriching our lives and the experience of our visitors by adding value to our homes and neighborhoods. It was signed by myself today and will be forwarded to the Parks and Recreation Committee. Next, we have a report by Commissioner Committee, and this evening we have the annual report from the Energy Committee. May we please have our report?
Yes, hello. My name is Mihaela Flaccarelli, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Arcata Energy Committee. And so I wanted to give a report on what we've been doing in the last year and our goals for the next year. So we've had a really dedicated group of committee members, and I'd like to especially recognize our chair, George Williamson. He took on the mantle of chair for another term, which we all are very pleased with. So some of the things that we've been working on, notably, is an all-electric initiative for Arcata. We've been developing an ambitious plan to phase out natural gas citywide. So this is looking at retrofitting existing buildings to get off of natural gas and promote the community-wide switch to electrification. Equity is a really important factor in this plan so that no one's left behind. And with electrification, we're really thinking about resilience, and particularly as we're looking into a future that will probably include more public safety power shutoffs. In addition, staff has been keeping us appraised of their activities to expand electric vehicle charging and adding battery storage to key city facilities, which would really help with resilience and moving off of fossil fuels. We've been working with RCEA and other local agencies on the regional climate action plan to make sure that the goals for that plan are ambitious and also attainable. So looking forward to the next year, we're going to be really focusing on that climate action plan from here on out. Certainly that's one of the biggest goals for this upcoming year. Transportation mode shift is another really crucial role because that's where a lot of the vast majority of our emissions in Humboldt County come from. We're also looking to move forward on the Arcata All Electric initiative and at more community resilience in the face of energy uncertainty, particularly with solar and storage.
Thanks, Mahela.
Yeah, thank you very much. Do we have any questions from the council? Councilmember Schaefer?
No questions, but thank you guys for all your work and looking forward to, seeing some of the initiatives you guys are working on before us not too long from now. So thank you guys so much.
Councilmember Atkins-Salazar?
No questions, but thank you. And just, I concur with what Sarah said.
Great. Do we have any members of the public that would like to comment?
Okay, yeah, there are a couple of members of the public that have their hands raised, but I believe they're for early oral communication. But please raise your hand if you want to comment on the Energy Committee report. All right, looks like we do still have one. Danielle, go ahead. We are still on the Energy Committee report.
I actually wanted to comment just public communications.
Okay, we'll hold for just a minute then. You'll be next.
Thanks.
All right, we have no public comment, Mayor.
Okay. Yeah, thanks so much. Really appreciate all the work the committee is doing. And yeah, thanks a lot. Appreciate the report.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Next, we have early oral communications. This 15-minute time period is provided for people to address the council on matters not on the agenda. At the conclusion of all oral communications, the council may respond to statements. Any request that requires council action will be set by the council for a future agenda or referred to staff. Speakers addressing the council at this time are limited to 2 minutes, and we can take up to 7 speakers. Please raise your hand if you're on Zoom or press *9 if you're calling in by phone and wish to make a comment. Do we have any members of the public that would like to comment?
We do. It looks like we have 4. Go ahead, Danielle, sorry.
It's all good. It happens all the time. So good evening. My name is Danielle. It's nice to meet the City Council on this digital platform. I am the lead organizer of Decriminalize Nature Humboldt, and I wanted to jump on here for a minute to introduce myself and to briefly tell you what we've been doing in our community. We've been educating the community on Saturdays during farmers markets about the medicinal qualities of entheogens, and we have been providing a copy of our resolution for community members to read. From the many letters you have received so far, it is apparent that the Arcata community has been very receptive about decriminalizing these sacred medicines. Also, most people are interested in learning how to take entheogens in a therapeutic way. During the last few weeks, I have heard countless stories about how entheogens have benefited people's lives. Just last week, an elder told me that he wished he could have access to the mushrooms to help him with end-of-life anxiety. And it's heartbreaking that people like him have been denied the mental health and spiritual support that is provided by these entheogens due to fear of arrest. These medicines should be accessible to everyone. So thank you for your time. I am looking forward to presenting our resolution during the next council meeting. Hope you have a good evening.
Thank you.
All right, next we have Dr. Norris.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Good evening, Arcata City Council members. My name is Dr. Larry Norris, and I'm the co-founder of the National Decriminalized Nature Movement, and I'm also offering support and guidance to the Decriminalized Nature Humboldt Arcata team. The Decrim Nature Movement began in Oakland in 2019, passing unanimously in June. Oh, can you hear me?
We can. Sorry, go ahead.
Could you hear the last bit or no?
I think you should just go ahead and start over,
Okay,
Dr. Norris.
okay, sorry about that.
Sorry.
Good evening, Arcata City Council members. My name is Dr. Larry Norris, and I am the co-founder of the National Decriminalized Nature Movement, and I am also offering support and guidance to the Decriminalized Nature Humboldt Arcata team. The Decrim Nature Movement began in Oakland in 2019, passing unanimously in June of 2019. Since then, DN-related policy has passed in 7 cities across the U.S., including Oakland, Santa Cruz, Ann Arbor, Michigan, Somerville, Cambridge, and Northampton, Massachusetts, with 53 of 54 city council members voting to approve the policy. In addition, Washington, D.C. voted to decriminalize nature with 76% voter approval. We are currently supporting over 45 active DN teams across the U.S. to pass similar policy. To this date, there are no negative reports or emergencies or increased crime related to decriminalization in any of the cities where DN has passed. The resolution has 2 main components: to make entheogenic plants and fungi lowest law enforcement priority, as well as redirect any funding away from the persecution or arrest of individuals for the sole purpose of possessing, growing, or community-based practice related to sacred plants and fungi. The majority of the cities who have passed have included both the deprioritization as well as the redirecting of resources away from arrests. This ensures the community feels safe that they will not be arrested by local Arcata law enforcement when engaging in sacred plant and fungi healing practices, and the redirection of funding reduces confusion amongst law enforcement, where on-the-spot judgment calls about priority often disproportionately affect the most marginalized communities. This is a movement about healing, compassion, and reconnecting to nature. Countless studies and centuries of practice show these sacred medicines can be beneficial for a multitude of mental health conditions, as well as supporting personal and spiritual growth. Thank you to Councilmember Schaefer for your leadership on this issue, and to the Arcata City Council for considering the upcoming resolution to decriminalize nature in the city of Arcata, and for doing what you can to help support the health and wellness of your community. Thank you, and have a good evening.
All right, go ahead.
Do we still have a 2-minute timer?
I do, yep. And I'm just resetting it on my phone. I did restart it
Thank
for
you.
him after he got cut off. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. I just wanted to double check.
All right, go ahead, Mrs. Villarreal.
Hello there. Can you all hear me okay? Oh, yep, it's working. My name is Kaya. I am the Sustainability Officer for the North Coast Co-op. I would like to offer my support in the exemptions on the consent calendar today. And I've been very impressed working with the City of Arcata on ordinance number 1527 in general regarding the foodware changes and the expansion of the single-use foodware items and plastic bottle restrictions. I would like to offer a note as a retailer and a business owners in the area. We would like to see a lot of promotion from the city itself. And I think it would help make ordinance number 1527 better received for all of the businesses. It's not to say we're not in support of it. We fully support it at the co-op, and we're very excited to have legislation for the city. But we just would like to make sure that there's a really strong public education component. We're worried a lot of our shoppers are going to see this as more of an isolated event at their shopping experiences at grocery stores. And we're just a little bit worried about the public feedback. So we would really like the City of Arcata to take a very strong public education stance on this ordinance. And I do have a second note regarding CRV issues that all other grocery stores and bottle vendors are facing now. It's still ongoing. and I just wanted to bring it to the council's attention. This was maybe brought up about over a year ago, and I wanted to just let the council know this is still a struggle that we are all working with right now. And so if you could just keep that in mind in future agendas. That's okay. That's my 2 minutes, but we'll be in touch. Thanks so much.
Right. Thank you. Next up, Mr. Boughton. Go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, Council. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me really quick. I'm assuming this is the time just to provide comment on a ecology over past due amount due to a tenant that was in one of my properties located at 1901 11th Street, Arcata. I have over $300 past due for a tenant that ultimately didn't pay rent for over 4 months. We've had a lot of COVID challenges this year for both tenants and landlords, and Recology didn't notify me of the delinquency until over 6 months past the first past due date. It just seems unfair as a property owner to get stuck with a large bill, especially so late, notifying after the fact of the delinquency. And yeah, I just wanted to contest that, I guess, at this point to see if there's anything that could be remedied in the situation, as we lost a lot of missed rent and damage to the home from this tenant, and seems unfair, and that would be responsible for it. So I appreciate your time listening. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Lazar. It's supposed to be public comment for items not on the agenda.
How it kind of got me started here, and then looks like this is not coming up till a long time later, but got the same situation he's in here. We still have a rent and eviction moratorium going on, and so I have a tenant. He says only 6 months. Mine hasn't paid for 10 months. Has since moved out. I never got a bill from Recology, even though the city code does say that they're supposed to notify the property owner. So I called Recology about it. They said he signed up for service back in February of 2020. That's almost a year and 4 months ago. And I asked, when did he stop paying? And they said he never started paying. So for a year and 4 months went by before I got a letter from the city threatening to put a lien on my property, which would affect my credit rating over a $300 bill, which the Recology says is actually closer to $500 now total. Tenant moved out. The cost to get all his garbage out of there was over $4,000 already. So I understand very well what Kyle's saying, and so just want to bring it to your attention if the city wants to. Right now, we're still paying property taxes, insurance, maintenance, gardening, and everything else. That seems when we can't do anything to evict a tenant, and you can't do anything to collect rent right now. So that's all.
All right. Looks like there's no other early oral communications.
Thank you. Next, we have the consent calendar. All matters on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the City Council and are enacted in one motion. There's no separate discussion of any of these items. If discussion is required, that item is removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. At the end of the reading of the consent calendar, council members or members of the public can request that an item be removed for separate discussion. A, approve the minutes, the City Council meeting of June 15, 2021. B, approve the minutes of the City Council meeting of June 16, 2021. C, biweekly report on general warrants. D, declare a continuation of local emergency related to the coronavirus pandemic. E, adopt resolution number 212-06, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Arcata, amending regulations governing commercial cannabis activity permits. F, amend the contract in the amount of $173,714.76 to GHD Inc. for professional services for the environmental documents, design, plan, specifications, and estimate for the Old Arcata Road Improvements Project, and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. G, renew the contract for legal services with the city attorney. H, authorize the city engineer to purchase a submersible flick pump package system for the Boyd Road lift station in the amount of $39,472.81. Authorize the city engineer to increase the purchase amount by up to $7,894.56, 20%, for a total of $47,367.37 to allow for any unforeseen contingencies and additional equipment as necessary, and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable agreements and documents. Adopt resolution number 212-05, adopting a list of exempted foodware products from disposable foodware standards set forth in Article 3, Food Waste Reduction, Chapter 3.5, Title 5 of the Arcata Municipal Code. Do we have any members of the council that would like to pull an item, or any members of staff? And do we have any members of the public that would like to pull an item for the consent calendar?
No members of the public that would like to remove a consent calendar item.
I move to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
I'm looking at something really quick. One moment. All right. We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Atkins Salazar.
Aye.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Aye.
Councilmember Goldstein.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Next, we have new business. Our first item is statement by the City of Arcata in support of an LGBTQI plus community. And would Councilmember Goldstein like to go ahead with this item?
Thank you. Yeah, thanks everyone for letting me hop on for just this item. For the public, I'm on vacation this week, but because this was an urgent matter, I felt like I should attend at least this portion of the council meeting. So for those of you that may not have been aware, during the last week or so of Pride Month, a pride flag was burned in Arcata. It was flying on the corner of 18th and H Street on a small community garden that is city property. The following day or the following few days, a group of community members gathered to show support for the LGBTQ community, had a very peaceful gathering and hung small pride flag ornaments on a tree in that garden. The next day or sometime over that weekend, that was a Friday, sometime between Saturday and Sunday, that tree was cut down and removed. And so this is a series of hateful events, hate crimes against the LGBTQ community, which thankfully have not resulted in any physical harm to an individual, but to property damage that is very symbolic of hate towards the community. So I just wanted to put out, I felt that we as a council should start, we're not going to get anything, we're not going to change the world tonight. We all know that. But I wanted to put out a statement and I wanted your help in crafting it. I wrote an initial statement and I'm very open to changes and additions. But I wanted to put something out so that the LGBTQ plus members of our community know that we see what happened and that we care and that we're going to work on this. And that for those that might be thinking about perpetrating some sort of hate violence, that's not something we stand for in our community. That's not the community that we live in. We're a loving community in Arcata, I like to think. And so that's not what we stand for. It's a very short statement, so I'm just going to read it real quick, just to have it out loud. I'm sure you all looked at it, but, and then if there's any additions or discussion or anything, that would be really great. Let me just pull it up. So during the last week of Pride Month, 2 acts were committed against the LGBTQ plus community in Arcata. At the corner of 18th and H Street, the perpetrators of these acts burned a pride flag flown in a small community garden. Later that week, the community gathered to mourn this act and show the strength of the LGBTQ plus community here in Arcata. As part of this gathering, community members hung small rainbow flag ornaments on a tree in the garden. The next day, the tree had been cut down and removed, presumably by the same people that had burned the flag. While we are grateful no physical harm came to any member of our community, these are acts of hate and violence. We as a city stand with our LGBTQ plus siblings and unequivocally denounce these and any acts of violence and hatred. These acts should serve as a reminder to us that we still have a long way to go to ensuring the equity and safety of all of our LGBTQ plus community members. This is just the start of a conversation and one that needs to be had again and again. We invite our community to join in the conversation. Together, we must actively and tirelessly work for equity and justice for all. So I wanted to keep it pretty short. And as I said, I'm very open to any feedback, but I think it would be important that we say something at least. That's all I got.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the council? Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes, so thank you for working on this and standing with our community. I think it's wonderfully written. I agree with everything that you wrote. I think that especially, at this time, especially, we talk about it's a month. Okay, we have Pride Month, but what happens the other 11 months of the year, right? And so especially, as June has come to a close, to continue and make this statement and make it now, especially in the wake of not only violence that we saw here in Arcata and hateful acts. I mean, we saw, if we look countywide, we also saw similar incidences with the church in Ferndale, putting hateful messages on their marquee for everybody to see, and the reaction that community had as well. And so I think that, now is the time to do it, just as we, continue through the rest of the year and say, hey, this isn't something we only care about 1 month of the year. This is something that we should, as a community, work tirelessly on to, as you, beautifully said at the end there, to have equity for everybody, right? So, I totally agree with your statement. I don't really have anything that I would want to change about it. I think that you, summed it up really nicely. And, just again, thank you for standing with our community and working for everybody, especially those that, felt attacked by this and felt the hatred that, resulted from these acts. So thank you for doing this. And I like it.
Councilmember Atkins-Salzar?
I think it's really well crafted, and I just thank you for being the one to spearhead that effort and bring it to us as the council so that we could, put forth this statement. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, I really appreciate your attention to it and taking the time to put a statement together, even though you're on vacation. And yeah, I think it sounds good to me. So do we need to vote on this?
Yeah, it would be good to have a motion, and then
Right.
we can put up.
Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I move that we adopt the statement provided by Councilmember Goldstein to show support and solidarity with the LGBTQI+ community.
And actually, we'll go ahead. Do we have a second?
Second it.
Do we have any members of the public that would like to comment on this?
Like to comment on this item, please go ahead and raise your hand, your Zoom hand. I see no public comment on this item.
All right, great. So a motion in a second. Councilmember Goldstein?
Okay. And I just want to say thank you to you all. I really appreciate the support that you're showing. It really means a lot. And yeah, I knew bringing this to the three of you would go very well, and that's what I expected. But I always would like to say, I really appreciate you all as colleagues. So thank you.
Councilmember Atkins-Salzar?
Aye.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Motion carries. Next, we have elect a mayor and vice mayor. Can we please have a staff report?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Council. So it's for bringing you this item. As you know, Sophia Purr's council position has been vacated, but also she was serving as mayor at the time that she vacated her council position. So when a midterm vacancy of the mayor's position happens, the council can consider the election of a new mayor and vice mayor. There is actually sort of two different guidance on this in your actual city documents. The municipal code just automatically rotates that to the vice mayor. So Brett Watson immediately became mayor at the time of her resignation. And then in your protocol manual, there is guidance that just simply says, in the absence of a mayor or a vice mayor position, that the council revisits that, reviews in essence the rotation that's outlined in your protocol manual, and consider those appointments into those positions of mayor and vice mayor. So this is before you tonight to, at least at a minimum, either rotate or appoint in a new vice mayor, because right now we have no vice mayor, so we have none of right now. And then to consider if there's any other alternative rotations that you would like on the mayor position.
All right, we'll go to Councilmember Atkins-Salzar.
I have a question. So if, if if Brett is our mayor right now and he's actually scheduled to be mayor next term, would he get to keep that? Or would this take the place of his full term? Or is that up to us to decide?
I think that's up to us to decide. The protocol manual also states, or I'm not sure if it's a municipal code, that every December, it's like the second week of December, we meet and determine who the mayor will be for the next year.
Okay, so I mean, so my recommendation, I don't have a recommendation for vice mayor, but for mayor, I do think, since the three of us are new and Brett is the one with, who has been mayor before with the experience, I do support him being the mayor now and then also getting to serve his term that comes up. And so when that next year's term comes up, that's when I'm slated to be vice mayor, and that still works for me. So I just don't know. I don't have an opinion on the vice mayor situation for right now, but I think Brett should be mayor for this term and the next one.
Thank you. Councilmember Schaefer.
Yeah, I largely agree with that. I also think, it has to do with what your personal preference is, Mayor Watson. So, I mean, if you want to do it for 6 months now and then do it for a whole other year, I am in support of that. And I know that, you are the most senior member and knowledgeable member of this council as well, with, the operations and the decorum and all that. So I largely agree with Stacy. Though depending on your personal opinion too, I mean, I would be comfortable with, if you want this to be your mayoral term and then we just push everybody, up a year, I guess would be the other option. So there we go. I laid out the two options that we probably have to choose from. But I mean, I think it's, I would want to hear what your preference would be as well, because, it is putting a lot of responsibility to say, yeah, you're going to do your year as mayor, and also you're going to do this other 6 months as mayor as well. So
sure, yeah. And I'll just answer really quick. Yeah, I mean, I think it would be ideal to have at least a full year term, and I wasn't planning on it. Obviously, I didn't expect Sophia to resign, but I do think for the next 6 months to fill out the year, I do think I can take on those extra responsibilities, yeah, so that would be my preference, I guess, would be to finish it and then also do it again next year. Councilmember Goldstein?
Yeah, I think I agree with everything that's been said. I'm really comfortable with all of that. This is putting you kind of on the spot, Councilmember Schaefer, but since we have talked about how just because of the way things fell out, you don't get that turn, at least, in this cycle as mayor. I don't know if you want or be interested in being mayor for the next 6 months, or if that feels like really, okay, that's what I figured. I would feel the same way. Like it feels way too soon, 6 months into this. But I figured I would at least bring it up in case you were like, yes, I really want this 6 months. So yeah, in that case, I think I support everything that's been said. And I think Mayor Watson does and will do a great job.
Thank you very much. Do we want to talk about vice mayor? Does anyone, do we want Stacy to just step in, or how do you guys feel about that? Councilmember Schaefer?
I mean, and with staying in the rotation, yes, that's what makes the most sense.
Okay. Councilmember Goldstein?
Yeah, I mean, I'm perfectly comfortable and fine with that. Again, I think she would do a great job. So if Councilmember Akin-Salazar wants to be vice mayor, I don't want to force anything on anyone, but I'm fine with that. I think that sounds fine.
All right. Councilmember Akin-Salazar?
No, thank you for recommending me, and I would be happy to do that as long as Brett promises not to resign and leave me holding the bag. So yeah, right. I'd be fine with that. Thank you.
Great. So I think we need a motion.
I move to appoint Brett Watson as mayor and Stacy Akin-Salazar as vice mayor.
Yeah, and I don't know if we need, how about let's just say through December 2021.
Through December 2021.
All right.
Second.
Great. Councilmember, so call the vote. Councilmember Atkins Salazar. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Do we have any members of the public that would like to make public comment?
If you would like to make public comment and are logged on to Zoom, please click on the raise your hand on the right-hand side of your screen. And if you have called in via phone, please press *9 on your phone to raise your hand. I see nobody here who would like to make public comment on this item.
Okay. Great. And I'm just thinking too, maybe we should do it, whatever you guys want to do. Since we've agreed on the rest of the year next year, do we want to do it through 2022? Or do you guys want to revisit it in December?
I mean, well, then won't it just fall back on following the rotation that we?
Yeah.
Well, actually,
exactly.
Yeah. So it's
Okay.
either way, but.
Great. What's you guys decide? You made the motion, Emily. So what do you want to do?
I mean, I'm really good either way. I think either way that will be what the rotation says. So, I mean, if we want to just make it through 2022, I'm fine with that if everyone else is comfortable with it.
Sounds good. I don't know if we can actually do that.
Fine with it.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
great.
I'll change it December 2022.
Awesome.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Councilmember Atkins Salazar.
Aye.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Aye.
Councilmember Goldstein.
Aye, and I'm gonna hop off and go back to vacation.
All right. Bye. Thanks for coming.
Bye, thank you.
And
See
I
you
vote
in
aye.
2 weeks.
Yeah, we'll see you soon. All right. I vote aye. The motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you entrusting me with a job and your kind words. Really appreciate it. I'll definitely do my best. Let's see. Next, we have consider a timeline and procedures to return to in-person city council meetings. You know, I forgot. Maybe Emily forgot this was on here. I thought she wanted to weigh in on this one too, but that's okay. May I please have a staff report from City Manager Dean?
Sure. So with many of the COVID-19 restrictions being lifted statewide, the council submitted a request to discuss a timeline and the protocols with which you would come back to the return of in-person council meetings. And I guess there's, just a few questions that probably need to be answered. So our virtual meetings have been under the auspice of executive order of Governor Newsom. Those orders, in essence, will be rescinded at the end of September. So between now and our first meeting in October 6th, would be the first meeting that the state would mandate us to be back into in-person meetings. That being said, most of the COVID-19 restrictions have been lifted, and we are reopened here as City Hall for regular sort of business hours and fairly regular protocols. So the protocols in place right now include vaccinated staff and vaccinated members of the public no longer need to wear masks coming into City Hall. Those that are unvaccinated do need to wear masks in public spaces and inside City Hall here. And so I guess the questions before the council are, do you have a preference of when we return to in-person meetings? Any time between now and October 6th, you will have to return to an in-person meeting. And then if so, if you want to return early, or even if you want to gear up for the October 6th return, are there any additional safety measures the council would prefer that we gear up? So we could and put partitions in between the seats that you have on the council dais. Right now, to come into City Hall, as I mentioned, you only are required to mask if you're unvaccinated. But if the council has a desire to require masking in the meetings, we could start to message that protocol out to the community. And right now, the current regulation on proof of vaccine is you have two options for any public business or local government. You can require proof of vaccine, a positive antibody test or a negative COVID test, or you can allow people to self-attest to their status, in essence, on the honor system. At a minimum, we already have signage up in City Hall and would be increasing that signage as we reopen for public meetings. That would, in essence, reinforce the requirement to mask indoors if you are unvaccinated at this time. So although social distancing is still encouraged, there are also no requirements in place for social distancing. So we would be returning to the seats, at regular distance, again, unless the council had a desire for us to, remove every other row or to try to socially distance those seats. And if there was any other considerations that you've seen that you were hoping that we would put in place, then we just wanted to have a discussion about that tonight to make sure that we have things set up for what you expected. And Stacy, Councilmember Atkins Salazar, is in the council chambers, so she can kind of look around and see if there's anything else that that she would like to see in there. So the seats that you see behind Councilmember Atkins Salazar actually have all been sold. So those will all be going away, and our new seats will have arrived and are in the hallway and will be installed prior to you reopening for in-person meetings. So the meetings that you have coming up, I guess we should go through. You've got a few. So you've got your July 22nd meeting scheduled. You will have your candidate interviews sometime that last week of July. So July 26th through the 30th. And then you've got right now a meeting that is scheduled on August 18th, September 8th and September 22nd. So those would be the meetings prior to the required October 6th date that you could consider coming back to in-person meetings.
Councilmember Atkins Salazar?
So I think that we should come back as soon as possible. I would like to, I know that we're working towards having a virtual component of our meetings, and I think that that's really important. From the different meetings that I've been in with other elected officials, that is definitely the trend, even in the really small towns, to offer both. And I think that although there's a lot to be said for our in-person meetings, there were plenty of people during the pandemic that were able to participate that would not have, because they were able to do it from home. So I would like to be able to keep that option. I guess we just would need to decide if we want to start in person and then add in that component. I believe that's what Eureka's doing. They're going to in person, but they're not yet set up to be virtual. So then they'll add that in. I don't feel like I need partitions or anything in council chambers. And I think people self-attesting, like the honor system of masking, it works for me. So those are my overall opinions.
Great. Councilmember Schaefer?
Yeah, I largely agree with what Councilmember Atkins Salazar said. The one thing I would just question, I mean, is there a way that we could have just like a very low tech sort of like call in line, I guess, during a council meeting that, if somebody couldn't make it, but they really wanted to, just put them on speakerphone or something? I don't know. If that's possible, but also, I mean, I know that we have, approved and talked about wanting to, get, and I think you even said that there has been equipment already ordered, for moving towards these hybrid meetings. So I think, it seems like we really wouldn't, if we started July 22nd back in person, by the time the next council meeting with the interviews, and then we wouldn't be meeting again until August 18th, that we would be making some headway on that. So that's just my one thought. If there was like a nice low tech, easy way to be able to have some sort of call in if people were interested, but that's not super dire, especially if we are moving to having a hybrid component like that. And then I agree. Yeah, I don't think we need to spend extra money on partitions. I think our whole council is vaccinated and has been open about that. So I'm not super concerned about that. And then, I agree. Yeah, if it's the city's policy, if the way you guys have been operating is, that self-attesting and not requiring anybody to show documentation of vaccination, I'm comfortable with that as well. So.
Great. Yeah, I agree with everything you guys said, and I would, be in favor of as soon as possible. What was the soonest date you said it could be?
It would be your next meeting on July 22nd.
Okay.
I guess, can I ask one more question?
Of course.
Is that easily done by staff, or would that put a burden since we've been doing it this way for so long?
No, we're just going to have to prep and be ready, whatever the date is. How smooth the hybrid option is for that first meeting, it might be a little bit clunky. As Councilmember Schaefer did indicate, we have at least attempted to order all the equipment. There are a couple of pieces that I know that our IT manager was trying to get from another source, but we should have enough up and running to certainly make it work and to be able to provide some sort of level of at least call in or call back to attain some additional public comment that evening. And then we'll just grow and build into it. But yeah, whenever the council feels ready to come back, we're definitely ready to reopen city council chambers.
And just, if it wasn't possible, if our tech stuff wasn't already ready to go, I would be fine with just going, just meeting in person and not having that option until it's, fully available. So whatever's best.
Okay, well, yeah, and I appreciate that. And we'll see what we can get set up at the point that we need to release the agenda and be able to share that information. So at least the community knows if they would be required to be in person for those first couple of meetings, what that option looks like. And we certainly could also, at a minimum, we could reopen. Remember, we did that kind of early public comment period where we had people email in public comment and then we read it aloud at the meeting. I mean, at a minimum, we could do that for anybody that submitted public comment, before, if we didn't have some level of hybrid that we could set up. So we can be creative.
So it sounds like we agreed to no partitions and masking. So we would, if somebody doesn't want to wear a mask, they'd have to show proof of vaccination. Am I reading that correctly?
No, I think it's just the honor system.
I mean, this said, okay.
You can do either or, and I think what I've heard from a majority of the council is just to honor the self-attesting, where if people don't wear a mask, it's because they're vaccinated.
I see. Okay. So is somebody going to be asking them, like, did you get a vaccine? Self-attesting is they just show up and nobody. Okay.
Self-attesting is that, I mean, we will put up signage that indicates, if you are unvaccinated, you are required to mask indoors. And we'll increase that signage to make sure that it's pretty visible as people are coming into public meeting spaces.
Okay. And then social distancing, we're going to say just leave the seating as it is. No spacing out between seats. And then when we have no other guidance. All right, I'm just going through the list on the staff report, making sure we covered everything. All right, do you need anything else from us?
No, we do have at least one public comment on this item.
All right.
Call in user 2, go ahead. Can you unmute yourself? Call in user 2. Can you unmute yourself? There you go.
Hello.
Yep, go ahead.
Hi, this is Joanne McGarry, and I'm using my flip phone and an old laptop where everything's sort of delayed. So I really have missed so terribly my ability to participate as fully as I'd like to in these meetings. So opening up July 22nd, however you do it, so that I can be there in person and participating and seeing everybody up on the dais at the same time. It's just been really, really, really a burden and a hardship for me to participate and attend and civically engage with the city and what's going on during this time when everything's had to be online. So please, please, please get back in person, and thank you.
And there is no other public comment.
All right, thank you, Joanne. We'll move on to our next agenda item. Next, we have item D, introduce ordinance number 1547, amending the Chapman House Historic Landmark Ordinance. May I please have a staff report from Community Development Director Loya?
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and council members. I did have a call from the applicant just before the meeting, and they asked that the item be continued to your August 4th meeting. So I'd be happy to present a staff report if you'd like to hear one, but I did want to put that out. That would require a vote to continue, and it's actually important to continue to a date certain to preserve the noticing for this quasi-judicial decision. So I guess I'll pause and see if you want to hear a staff report anyway, or if you want to take up.
What's their reasoning? Why do they want it delayed?
They wanted to, well, for one, they wanted to have more time for, to prepare for the meeting. And then number two, I think they wanted to ensure that they had, the benefit of all the council members at the meeting. They didn't realize before the meeting that Councilmember Goldstein wouldn't be present. So I think those were the two primary reasons.
Okay.
I'd like to offer a couple of things. One is the applicant is in the attendees, so I could bring him in if the mayor desired that. Second, we are not anticipating to have a quorum for the August 4th meeting, as a reminder. So
no quorum for the August 4th, so we'd have to continue to, and we're not having a second August meeting, is that correct?
We will have a meeting August 18th, is still scheduled at this time.
Okay, so continue to the August 18 meeting would be the request.
Councilmember Atkins-Salazar?
I don't have a problem with continuing it.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yeah, I'm fine to continue it, especially because this is was kind of a fairly new thing, in at least my radar, and so having also a little bit more time to get familiar with the requests and everything like that would be beneficial as well. So I'm fine with that.
All right. Do we have a motion? Do we have any members of the public who'd like to comment?
Reminder, if you're logged into Zoom, click on the raise your hand on the right-hand side of your screen, or press *9 on your phone if you would like to make a public comment on this item. Seeing no public comment.
Okay. Why don't you, David, go ahead and just give us a, I don't know, a preview, since we have you here.
Okay.
It's already on the agenda.
Yeah, be happy to give sort of the 30,000 foot view of the presentation. Before I jump into it, I do want to acknowledge that the Planning Commission made a special recommendation in addition to adopting their resolution recommending this ordinance. They wanted the council to discuss the policy implications related to the, granting the exemption for the cap for this project, and consider maybe reopening the short stay vacation rental ordinance and reducing that by the 3 units that were, that were granted to this project. And so I just wanted to put that out there, and maybe that's something that you can ruminate on as well between now and the August 18th meeting, and provide direction to staff at that time. It does only reflect a few units, but it's, it's certainly a policy decision the council could take up. And that was a recommendation of the Planning Commission. So basically what is going on here, sort of the 30,000 foot view, is that when the Hunts were considering purchasing the Chapman House and looking at their options, they came in and asked the city to landmark the property. That landmarking is one of 2 areas of policy where the city actually gives these kinds of incentives. One is affordable housing, and the other is historic preservation. So in the historic preservation section of our land use code, we have a list of different sort of canned incentives that we can give. But then there's also sort of an open-ended statement that, we can give any other incentive that makes the project feasible to preserve in its historic status. And so the Hunts came in, and if you look on your packet page 101, you'll see the Exhibit 3 that's proposed to be modified by this ordinance. Hunts came in and asked for 9 different principally permitted uses and 2 conditionally permitted uses. These uses, some of these uses are actually allowable in the underlying zoning. Some of them are not allowable in the underlying zoning. And what this ordinance does is, in effect, codify for this property. Everything okay out there? Codify for this property these uses And again, these uses are intended to make the project financially feasible for preservation. So in a sense, the city is recognizing that the historic resource is more important than whatever the existing underlying use was, offering up these other uses. And you'll notice in this list of 11 different use types, only one of them is actually residential housing, the multifamily housing, number 8. All the rest of these are really commercial uses. It wasn't discussed much when we brought the ordinance forward, but the Hunts were really interested in doing the vacation rental as a means for, facilitating the financial feasibility of this project. And they added these others as a means for sort of future-proofing the uses, that they could, continue these uses into the future, regardless of what happens with the underlying zoning. And so currently, they can do any of these 11 uses, 2 of them with a use permit. When we adopted the vacation rental ordinance, short stay vacation rental ordinance, we established a cap on the number of vacation rentals if no one lives on the site long term. Right now, no one is living on the site long term, and they have been doing vacation rental, and so there is an exemption for that. The Hunts could come in and get their vacation rental permits. But those are not transferable. And so part of the request here is to go back and sort of ratify the original intent of this ordinance, which was that they would be allowed in perpetuity to be able to do vacation rentals or any of these other commercial activities.
How do you know that that was the intent?
The effect that that's the purpose of the incentive, is to give commercial activities to residential uses.
Does it say in perpetuity?
Designated uses?
Does it say in perpetuity?
Well, I mean, until the ordinance is changed. I mean, maybe not forever and on, but
all right, that sounds
certainly
right.
For as long as the ordinance is. Okay, I apologize for that. Stand corrected. So for the term of the ordinance, the uses would be allowed. And so it is that the amendment here would recognize that, yes, we will follow all of the vacation rental requirements. We'll get a permit, so on and so forth, but that they are requesting that they continue to be exempt from the cap, so that they can continue those uses whether they live on the site or not, whether they transfer the property or not. So that's at the heart of it, what the ordinance would amend. And I did want to point out that we did receive public comment on the proposal, and in some, I think you've all had a chance to take a look at that. But in some, what the public comment says is, hey, maybe you shouldn't take this out of the housing stock. You should, honor the intent of this short stay vacation rental permit process and ensure that at least one of those units is a long-term tenancy, or provide only a 10-year allowance for that short stay rental exemption. And I wanted to make sure that you're aware of that public comment as well. So I think those are kind of like the highlights. And happy to answer any questions that you may have about any details.
Councilmember Atkins Salazar.
So just to clarify, as it stands right now, it's 3 vacation rentals, and the owners there's still room within our cap for them to apply for those 3 and be granted, or have we already maxed out our cap?
The cap is not maxed at this point. You may recall that the short stay vacation rental ordinance had a 6-month grace period where anybody who is actively engaged could come in during that term and obtain a short stay vacation rental permit. The reality is that at the time when we adopted the ordinance, we knew of about close to 90 in total vacation rentals. So it's highly unlikely that through this 6-month term, we're going to hit that cap of 100 that don't get the exemption because there's some long-term tenancy on the site. So theoretically, they could come in and, get the permit because they're an existing user. It's just that permit is not transferable and it's not guaranteed into the future. And so what they're asking for is to go back to, again, what they believe was the original intent. I think what staff was, believed was the original intent as well. Don't want to read into what the council's intent was, I guess, at this point, but that the, these uses were a incentive to continue to be able to viably maintain the property as a historic resource, recognizing the, the added expense of doing so.
Thank you.
Councilmember Schaefer.
When does our 6-month grace period end?
Middle of September. I don't have the exact date. I think it's around the 17th.
Okay. And has this property already been sold? Has the owner transferred? Or, because I guess that, I don't know, in my mind then, if that 6-month period has passed and there are new owners and there's facing the cap even, practically less than a month, after we see this, I guess I'm not really formulating this question very well, but I'm just thinking of the timeline, I guess, of it, and who would be, owning this permit, in charge of this property. And I guess maybe that doesn't necessarily matter with what we're thinking about, but it just seems, I don't know, some of it might end up being repetitive, I guess, but.
Yeah.
Again, I want to know more about it.
The permits are not transferable.
So.
Yeah.
As a reason.
The permits are not transferable. So, yeah. So if the current owners obtain their permits, if they sell the property, then they wouldn't be transferred with that transaction. The new owners, could, if the 6 months has not expired and they don't live there, then they could get on the wait list. They wouldn't be able to continue to operate the vacation rentals. They could get on the wait list and hope that there's not more than 100 in September. If they decide to live there, if they decide to rent one of the units to a long-term tenant, they would be eligible to get a permit without regard to the cap. There's no question that the I had one public member comment that the property looks more like a commercial property, that it's got a handicapped parking space. It's got an ADA accessible pathway up to the project. It has a look and feel of more of a commercial property, due to the kind of investment they made based on, their anticipated use of the property. And so, how that, would transition to use as a, another type of residential use, is maybe an open question, but it could also transfer to any one of these other uses listed on page 101. So they could close all the residential down tomorrow and turn it into a medical service doctor's office, for example. And that's principally permitted. We don't have any other permitting requirements for that. And, and again, this is, in their existing ordinance. So that's not something that you would be changing. So any one of those other permits or other use types, 2 through 9, without regard to any other permit, the property could be transitioned away from residential use anyway.
So I think I heard Councilmember Schaefer's question just a little bit differently, and that if the property ownership transferred right now, that the new owner would in essence still be able to prove that the property had been in short stay rental, but the TOT that
they're not transferable.
Right. Well, I understand they're not transferable, but
yeah,
but they haven't even applied for a permit yet. Right. So there's something to.
Yeah, the way that the short stay. Yeah, the way the short stay rental ordinance is drafted, that it has to be the existing owner. And so their status as a vacation rental is not transferable to a new owner. That new owner would have to then establish their operations. And there's a couple of ways of doing that. One would be to be under the cap if they don't live there or have long-term tenants. One would be to live there and one would be to rent to long-term tenants. And those latter two, they wouldn't be subject to the cap. So they would be eligible for a permit in many cases. And I think the concern that they have is that they want to maintain their options, into the future, recognizing the uncertainty associated with the short stay vacation rental requirements.
Right. So this is kind of this short window because we are in this wait period until mid-September, until we know what the actual number is, to be able to tell somebody with certainty whether or not they're going to, that there is a slot open to even apply for under that permit right now. So if anybody comes in and says, I'm interested in turning my place into or purchasing a place and continuing, we're telling them all right now that until you're being put on a wait list, until that date expires, and then we'll start to process those applications that are on the wait list if we're under the 100 cap.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, the concern is what if what if you're over the cap and you don't live there? They want to have the ability to continue those uses to make the resource preservation financially feasible.
Yeah, I feel like every Airbnb operator is in the exact same position. They have an Airbnb, and if they sell, they'd be in the same boat. And I just think it's important that whatever we do is really fair to everybody, to the whole community. And it seems, we've granted a lot of other uses to this property. And, I feel like the fair thing to do is to make them play by the same rules that we're making everybody else play by. So that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah, I hear that. I think that, gets back. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I think that just gets back to, these two policy areas of affordable housing and historic preservation, where we do recognize, those policy areas as actually providing a public benefit unto themselves. And so we have these incentives that we give to those two resource types that we don't give to other people. And so I think that's where the original, impetus for these incentives came from.
Okay. Do you have any members of the public that would like to comment? Do we already take public comment on this?
We have at least one member.
All right.
Phil, go ahead.
I just have a question for the council and staff. This is Phil Lazar again. Is there a need for the non-transferability of these vacation rental permits? Why not let them be transferred? People are going to put a large investment into developing these businesses, and it seems like if they need to sell for whatever reason, if they're moving out of the area, their health reasons or whatever, they would want to be able to sell that property with the permits, just like every other. It seems like almost every other business can do that. So anyway, that's my question.
I would say, in my opinion, it just gives the city more control. And I feel like we've identified how severe our housing crisis is. It's, homelessness, which is basically housing, is our number one priority as a council. And, I feel like it just kind of speaks to that, I guess.
Yeah, I think the conversation the council had at the time had to do with the idea too that they didn't want folks to speculate on vacation rentals, essentially taking our permit, which then had value they could sell to other people.
Do you have any other comments from the council? No. Well, yeah, if you want to, someone would like to make a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we continue the discussion of ordinance number 1547, amending the Chapman House Historic Landmark Ordinance until our August 18th meeting.
I second.
Great, we have a motion in a second. Councilmember Atkins Salazar.
Aye.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Aye.
I vote aye. Motion carries. Move on to our next agenda item. E, conduct a public hearing to hear objections or protests from landowners listed on the report for 2020 lien letter recipients of delinquent garbage account fees, and make revisions or corrections to the report as the council deems just, after which adopt resolution number 212-04 confirming the report of 2020 delinquent garbage account fees for liens. May I please have a staff report from Environmental Services Director Sincor.
Well, good evening, Mayor and council members. The Environmental Services Department has been working with the city's solid waste franchise hauler Recology to track and ensure proper notification of delinquent garbage account fees. And Environmental Programs Manager Emily Benvey has been leading this effort and will provide more of the staff report this evening.
Thank you. Good evening, council members and members of the public. To provide a little bit of background, the city of Arcata requires all occupied premises to subscribe to and pay for garbage and recycling services. Tenants may obtain and pay for service. However, the owner of each parcel is ultimately responsible for payment of such service. As Director Sincor mentioned, Recology Arcata serves as the city's franchise garbage and recycling hauler. And per a franchise agreement, Recology is required to notify property owners of unpaid account balances. On an annual basis, the city of Arcata provides written notice to property owners who have bills that have remained unpaid for at least 60 days. Property owners are provided additional time to arrange for payment, and this council meeting provides owners the opportunity to protest or provide relevant information related to unpaid bills. The list included in your blue folder includes Recology account numbers, assessor parcel numbers, and amounts that are delinquent. The list in the blue folder is the same as the list included as part of this original staff report. However, 4 accounts have been paid and were removed from the original list. Upon confirmation by council, these are the accounts that will have liens placed on their property if the account is not paid prior to July 31st, 2021. So you'll note that there's another roughly 3 weeks that property owners have to arrange for payment with Recology. Accounts that are paid prior to that July 31st date will be removed from the list. And I'm happy to answer any additional questions the council members may have. One other thing I'll note really quickly is that Linda Wise, the general manager for Recology Arcata, is on as an attendee, and I know she's also happy to answer questions that come up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll start with the council. Council member Schaefer.
I don't think I have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Council member Atkins-Salazar.
I do have just a question on procedure. I know there was 2 callers that did call in during our previous public input time to, raise concerns regarding their bills as property owners. Is this a sweeping motion of everything? Do we hear individual requests? What is that part of the process?
The motion that you make tonight, the resolution, you would be adopting the list as a whole. And typically in one motion. The 2 that spoke earlier in this evening talked about, sort of long delinquent bills that they felt like they had late notice for. And what I can share to that effect is that staff did spend a number of iterations going through Recology's list and confirming with Recology every single account and when it received notice. We did have several accounts that were on that list initially that Recology had not submitted to us in 2019 for noticing, and we did indicate to them that they would need to remove those accounts because they should have been included in the last year. So we basically bracketed the liens to be for that 2020 year. And moving forward, it looks like your city attorney might have some additional comment to that end. But we did bracket this to only include those accounts that had delinquencies in 2020 and those accounts that had received notice from Recology and had time to rectify those prior to being placed on the list before you tonight.
Right. Do we have any members of the public that would like to comment?
We do have one member. He has already commented on this item. but it's up to you, Mayor.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
We'll let him comment again.
Go ahead, Phil.
Thank you. Try not to abuse my time with you guys tonight. Thank you. So I heard Emily say that Recology was required to notify property owners. Others may have been notified, Emily, but to my knowledge, I never have received any notification from Recology about any unpaid bills. And I did call them, and I've not, to my knowledge, I don't have any itemization of how they got to the amount that what's owed for 2020. So it seems like I didn't even know there was a law like this. I've had rentals here in Arcata for 20 years. I never heard of this law until this time here. So I have a tenant not paying rent, has moved out, but owes over $23,000 or owes $23,000 in back rent and damages and legal fees. So I'm just shocked to get a bill from the city without any kind of like, where did that number come from? Recology's not ever said, hey, here's how we came up with that number or why you owe it, Phil. So just seems odd to me. I'm not paying his utility bills or his gas bills or his food bills. Anyway, all right. Thank you. So I don't know. I'd like to know why they didn't send a bill right away when the thing was first delinquent. Why wouldn't they notify me? The city notified me, but it's it's a year and 4 months later. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Phil. Do we have any other members of the public that would like to comment?
Well, we do have one more. Go ahead, Kyle.
Yes, good evening. I just want to make the same comment, same as Phil. It sounds like we're in the same boat. I'm over, $6,000 in losses too, between damages and rent. But again, I just agree with Phil on the point that, the council should take into consideration that Recology has really dropped the ball as far as communication with these landowners. I feel that if I was notified when this was going delinquent at the time, I could have had the opportunity to remedy the situation with the tenant. But instead, it's 6 to 8 months after the fact that I finally received notification, which at that point I was already in a loss and had no control. That's pretty much all I wanted to comment on, is that I feel like if this is going to be put in place, Recology should be responsible for notifying these landowners immediately to see if we could remedy the situation besides getting communication later on and being stuck with a bill, especially in a situation that Phil and I are in where we're already deep in the hole, and with the COVID regulations, with evictions and whatnot, it's made it very difficult for us to maintain our properties. And I think all that should be taken into consideration, especially with the year we've had with tenants and landlords. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any more public comment?
I don't see any more public comment.
Okay.
We do have Recology here if you have questions for her as well, for Ms. White.
Okay. All right, great. Does staff want to respond to either speaker?
Sure. I will note that according to the records that the city was provided by Recology, we do have evidence that Mr. Lazar received a letter of delinquent accounts that was mailed on November 19th of 2020. Mr. Boughton, we have record that he received a letter mailed on April 29th of 2021. So to speak to those individuals, we did receive record that those letters had been mailed. And then we worked with Recology on sending 2 rounds of notification to landowners to ensure that they were aware of unpaid delinquent accounts. I do hear the concern about the potential length of time that could lapse between property owners receiving delinquent account notices based on when tenants could potentially move out, therefore jeopardizing the potential for owners to recoup costs borne by the tenants. Staff has been working with Recology to help improve that communication process and ensure that property owners are notified in a more timely manner. I would defer to Linda Wise to detail more specifics of that, but that is a process improvement that came up between city staff, members of the public, and Recology that we're working on improving in the future, because I do understand that sometimes there can be a lag between notification and tenants moving out. So wanted to clarify that we do hear those concerns and we're working on improving that for the future.
Okay, great. Would you like to make any comments, Ms. Wise?
I would only say that, it's probably the first time that it's happened to these landlords and probably the first introduction to the ordinance that was passed many years ago. I feel for them, and these are extraordinary times. Certainly willing to work with them and help with contact with the tenant if they would make payments. One of the difficulties that we have in areas where there's turnover in rentals, like in college town, is many times if the landlords don't put the garbage service in their name, then the lapse between our billing cycles may not meet the time when their tenant moves out. So I would encourage the landlords to perhaps in the future maybe put the bills in their name, and then that way they'll get itemized lists of what the bills are for, and they can also have control with how much garbage service that the tenant's getting. Like if they subscribe to the largest size and then left the landlord with the bill at the end, the landlord would not have had control over what size of service they would have had and had knowledge of what was going on garbage wise at their sites. I would suggest that. I was going to say something else, but now I forgot what it was. But if anybody has any questions, I can answer them.
Great, thank you. Any other comments from the council? Nope. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a
motion B. Sorry. Oh, okay, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 212-04, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Arcata to confirm the report of 2020 delinquent garbage accounts fees for Lane.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Councilmember Atkins-Salazar.
Aye.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Aye.
And I vote aye, the motion carries. We'll move on to our next agenda item F, designate voting delegates to the Cal Cities 2021 Annual Conference and Expo, September 22nd through 24th, 2021 in Sacramento. May I please have a staff report?
Yeah, this will be new to our new city council members, but each year the League of California Cities does have an annual conference, and it does appear as though they're going to try to hold that conference in person, September 22nd through the 24th. And they ask each year just to make sure that any of your council members that are interested in coming be placed on a list to be a voting delegate for that conference. Just so if there is somebody there who wants to participate in votes on the league for the upcoming year, that we have that captured and sent to them so that they're authorized to do so. I did have a conversation with Councilmember Goldstein. She did say she was interested, but did not know if that was going to work with her work schedule, but she would be interested in just being added to the list just in case she was able to attend in September, and in the event that nobody else was there and she wanted to vote on something. So this can be a very inclusive list. All four of you could be listed on it. But if you know that you have no interest in going, we typically have just left those names off of the list.
Great. Councilmember Atkins-Salazar.
I do plan to attend that conference. I do go to a lot of the roundtables and to the quarterly meetings, so you can add me to the list.
Councilmember Schaefer.
It sounds really awesome, and I would love to because it would be a great learning experience, but it looks like it's midweek, and I don't think I can. I'm already taking some other time off from work, so I don't think that would be possible for me.
Okay.
But thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, I think I'd be happy to do it. And it's really, yeah, whatever Councilmember Goldstein wants to do. I'm happy to do it. Be one of the primary people with Stacy, or if Councilmember Goldstein would like to do it, then that's also fine with me. Yeah, I will likely attend either way. I have to say, like, they can make a really big deal about the voting delegate. I did this before, where I was a voting delegate, and they made a really big deal about it. And you really, they wanted you there if you're going to be it, and they wanted you to be there on time to vote. And when I did it a couple years ago, everybody met in this room and like had lunch while they were discussing it, and then they ended up not having a vote at all, and just like their board just passed it, and nobody actually had to vote on anything. So I don't know what my point is, but I guess yeah, it's might not be as vital as they let on, I guess. All right.
All right, so I would just need a motion just to declare, maybe Councilmember Atkins Salazar as a voting delegate, and then Mayor Watson, I guess it'd be Vice Mayor Atkins Salazar as our voting member, and then Mayor Watson and Councilmember Goldstein as alternates. If that works, somebody could make a motion to that effect.
Has to be you, Sarah.
I move that we appoint Stacy, Vice Mayor Atkins Salazar as our voting delegate, and Councilmember Goldstein and Mayor Watson as our alternate delegates for the Cal Cities 2021 annual conference.
Great. Motion in a second. Councilmember Schaefer.
Aye.
Councilmember Atkins Salazar.
Aye.
I vote aye. And that, I believe, takes us to oral and written communications. This time is provided for people to address the council on matters not on the agenda. Please raise your hand if you're on the Zoom webinar. Press *9 now if you're on a phone line and you would like to make a public comment. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes. When it is your time for public comment, the clerk will unmute you and invite you to speak. Do we have any members of the public that would like to make comment during this time?
We do. Go ahead, Phil.
I didn't realize my hand was still up, but I'll just say real quickly, if they sent a letter, I never got it. I've never received anything from Recology showing anything was ever owed. And the city's letter came over a year after it went delinquent. All right, that's all. Thank you, guys.
All right. Yeah, and again, this is for items that was not on tonight's agenda. Do we have any other members of the of the public that would like to comment?
We do not.
All right. Council and staff reports. Do we have any staff updates?
We don't. I will share with the council that I will follow up with the 2 speakers tonight, and we will do some backtracking with Recology, and we will ask for additional proof in terms of notices sent, just to make sure that we do have that proof in line, because that seems at a minimum reasonable.
Thank you. Councilmember Atkins Salazar.
One thing I wanted to talk about for future agendas is the getting a dog park in town. It's been brought up to me. I know that was on the past councils, some things that you guys were talking about and working on. And so I would just like to feel like we should get back on track for that, at least to start that discussion again.
All right. Councilmember Schaefer.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
All right. I do not have anything to report this evening. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate everyone's time and all the staff's hard work. And oh, we do have something else. Sorry. Dates of future meetings. Consider canceling the regular city council meeting of August 4th, 2021.
Yeah, just with being down at 4 council members right now, we do have 2 that we're going to be absent for that first week in August, so that will not leave us with a quorum. So as long as we can just do that by sort of consensus, if that is still the case, and everyone's okay with that.
Yep, that's fine. And B, set a special meeting for the last week of July 2021 to interview city council candidates to fill the current vacancy.
And I did touch base with Councilmember Goldstein. Any of the days of that last week in July are okay with her. So anyone that you pick, she'll be able to make.
All right, Councilmember Atkins Salazar.
I'm open that week in the evenings.
Okay.
Except for Monday. Monday won't work.
Okay. Councilmember Schaefer.
Yeah, I'm totally open that week. So whatever works for everybody best. Maybe the Wednesday, because that's just when council is normally anyway. So make sure they can meet on a Wednesday for this prospective new candidate. No, I don't know, but I'm open.
Yeah, that's fine with me. I know we'll also have potentially have a closed session item we'll need to discuss during that week as well. So I just want to make sure we're coordinating all that. All right, now we are done. So yeah, thanks everybody. Hope you have a good night, and the meeting is adjourned.